This episode was recorded on February 24th, 2021.
Good morning, Mayberry.
Ooh, Mayberry. It's your good old host Shift. We are gathered here today for the return of Larry Lyons. He has come back to resume the tabled discussion from season 2, episode 4, Cancel Culture Club features Nikki Aaliyah's Earth is Ghetto. We are here to discuss the elder millennial princess of the pop patriarchy, the one, the only, Britney Jean Spears. Her conservatorship, her hypersexualized teen music career, and her iconic, controversial, and extremely problematic song and video, Slave for You. Yeah, so how are things over there? Is it still like the tundra? Is it still snowing?
Today was the first day where we broke like 50 degrees, so it's, doing what it can to melt what was waist-high snowbanks. Yeah, so at least
heck,
there's some reprieve.
That just snow terrifies me, and I was looking at the maps of the entire country, and I was just like, "That's outrageous! It's like a nightmare." I'm in the tiniest sliver where there was no ice covering the earth.
Yeah, it's been labor intensive. I've definitely had to do more shoveling this year than I ever have in my life.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the way it's just going to be until it's not that way anymore.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the humans do about it.
I guess so. Now, where we last left off was not giving much of a shit about Britney Spears because we had better things to talk about. And to prepare for today, I was listening to Irene Cara, It's Irene Live in Tokyo, 1985, while I was cooking dinner, and my knee just suddenly decided that we were no longer dancing. That was something that happened, but I'm still pretty charged up on like awesome Black women who have made great music.
Dope.
Yeah. Irene Cara is Black, right? I actually haven't looked it up. I'm making assumptions.
She's soulful. But I don't think she's black.
I don't know. I mean, now I feel like I need to Google check myself. Not that it matters all that much.
Definitely Black adjacent, but I don't know. I can't confirm or deny.
Interesting. Well,
yeah. Of the diaspora?
Diaspora. That's Afro-Puerto Rican. I Google checked myself. Okay. Yeah. Afro-Puerto Rican and Cuban American.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Of
great.
The diaspora.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll say some I'll talk out of my ass a little bit, but I do try to keep my ass in check about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then actually last night, on the notion of Britney Spears' life in general, her conservatorship being lifted, in between when we released the last episode where we referenced her and this episode's recording, somebody pushed me into a rabbit hole on Amanda Bynes' conservatorship yesterday.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, because now I want to follow her secret Twitter account really bad.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really interesting time to look at wellness and celebrity and how those forces interact and counteract.
Well, yeah.
I thought I was prepared to have a conversation about, if not the whole entity that is Britney Spears, what Britney Spears and Slave for You has meant to me. But it's one of those things that the more you grasp it in your hands, the more it turns to sand.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the set of feelings and suspicions I had around Slave for You and in her career at large was complicated, but it turns out that it's even more complex and unsatisfying than I anticipated. And that's the thing. Like, generally, even if things are a clusterfuck, if I commit to going down the rabbit hole, I'll find satisfaction sooner or later. Britney denies me that satisfaction.
Interesting. Powerful.
And I think it's the framing used by the most recent documentary does position her as a victim of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in my readings of her work, I took perhaps too seriously the assertions of agency and this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, this is who I want to be.
Oh.
And I think what's become clear in the past 3 weeks that I've really been thinking most heavily about Britney is that her whole career is a case study in the dissonance between the reality that one inhabits and the reality that one projects within the pop patriarchy.
Ooh. Yes.
So where do we go?
Well, we go a couple of places because it's actually, I don't know if this is a microcosmic alignment, a macrocosmic alignment, or just a juxtaposition because celebrity is no different than regular life. Like it is, but it's not. I think we still can address the reality of the impact of things. I particularly think that, so there's the intention behind something, the reality behind something, and then the host of ways in which it's consumed. And every one of those things is, in my opinion, worth assessing if there's access to the information easily and it's not redundant.
One of the things that I think we are doing in our cultural criticism is really allowing for not, how do I say this? Understanding the role of the artist, at the very least, the recording artist, as more of a curator,
mm-hmm.
a entity that kind of works as a colander, and it's, culture goes through it and it retains certain elements and then projects them back at us.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the question of Britney as kind of a cultural producer, it complicates that formulation that you just made around, the intention and what really happens in the world, because oftentimes in her catalog and her body of work, it seems that the intentions that she articulates are dissonant, if not contrary, with how her label is thinking, how her directors are thinking, how some of her writers or producers are thinking,
mm-hmm.
certainly how her conservator is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So much of her catalog is about resisting authority and surveillance and really trying to eke out some agency of your own. And so much of it is kind of self-sure, this is who I am, and this is this is how it's going to be, which I really think is this kind of black girl cosplay, which is like this kind of neck craning sassiness that she, can usurp or co-opt, but not really authentically inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the best way to look at that is the way that this song starts. Slave for You, which came out, 2001, I want to say?
Sounds about right. I would have been maybe like 16. Is that right? Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think that in a lot of ways, Slave for You, I mean, if you read what's written about it, everyone agrees that Slave for You is Britney's opportunity to pivot from this kind of girl next door persona that was marketed the previous project. And so we get her articulating herself as more of an adult, more of a sexualized, self-actualized and sexualized figure. And so to do that,
I got to take pause for a second because I did look up to check and make sure that the release date was 2001. The genre is teen pop for this song. So I just want to say that right after you talk about it being a chance for her to step out into sexualization. But yeah, go on. Let's keep on trekking.
I mean, these genres are even interesting because I feel like,
what the fuck is teen pop?
Right. but that
my first thought, actually, like if I was to say that without context, my heart wants to go to Frankie and Annette.
Wow. Right. Very, very different set of challenges for Britney.
Totally.
But one of the things that I think might authenticate that genre is that the song is written by Max Martin, and he's like this, I want to say Swedish kind of sensation, to excuse the alliteration, but back in the 90s, early 2000s, he was writing everything for everybody. So Baby One More Time is him. I Wanted That by the Backstreet Boys is him. It's Gonna Be Me by NSYNC is him. And so you might be teen pop just because he wrote your song. I don't know.
Okay. All right. I see.
Yeah. But I mean, I mentioned Max because he's one of the men who are manufacturing this image for Britney. And she talks about him saying that in terms of their writing, like, oh, he really gets where I'm going. And, you know, I trust his instincts, and he creates these weird and interesting sounds, but I've never trusted anyone more than him. And I can always trust, you know, being with him in the studio. And I think when you're trying to articulate kind of the self-definition, when you point out who in your corner you can trust, that's a big deal. So much of her catalog is identifying figures, authority figures, male figures, with whom she has these kind of contentious relationships and a set of expectations that she doesn't care to fulfill. But one moment of reprieve from that is this partnership with this particular writer. So
say his name one more time.
Max Martin.
Max Martin. Okay.
He, I Kissed a Girl, Katy Perry.
Okay. That's him. All right.
Yeah. He's made millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Do we know what generation? Is he like a Gen X person?
He was born in 1971.
Okay. I think that's Gen X. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 1971. Sure. Yep. So
there's him who's, you know, crafting or writing her into this teen genre and then writing her out of it, you know, from one project to the next. He is in many ways controlling the degree to which her lyrics reflect her sexual evolution. A man. But, you know, whatever.
Right.
I don't make essentialist arguments, but this is a white European man.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the prisms that's beaming light through Britney. I think another is, we've got to mention Pharrell, or the Neptunes, who produced this track, which is another fascinating duo. Pharrell had gotten so much kind of street cred for taking those futuristic beats to urban music, to hip hop. And so, he was working with Nori at the time and, Busta Rhymes. Britney actually, when she was recording or touring with One More Time, heard what Pharrell was doing, was like, oh, on my next project, that's where I have to go. So in terms of the sounds, she's also kind of putting her faith in someone that's proven successful in that arena already. So she's turning to, or she's at least, I can't even say turning to, because I don't know where the agency lies. Maybe the label is, dragging them in to make these hits. Mm-hmm. But the end result is that
the sense I got at the time, because I remember vaguely Britney being around and Pharrell popping up after, like by maybe like a year and a half. Does that sound like a thing, or would that be my perception based on what channels I was watching them through?
Yeah, I feel like Pharrell, I can't, and Pharrell and the Neptunes were enjoying significant success in urban music before Britney.
Well, I accidentally referenced the Mickey Mouse Club earlier. I was genuinely drawn to bring up Annette Funicello because of looking at the term teen pop, but Britney, I guess in my mind kind of extends back to that period, and then there's a gap, I suppose. So yeah, perception and platform matter, I guess, is the point of my fucking little meander right there. Cause yeah, in my memory, Britney was like running on MTV before Pharrell was. I just would have not noticed him, is what it is.
Yeah, because I mean, he was recording in the like early 92, 93, and Britney must be very young at that point.
Huh. And then how much older is he then? Because he looked young as hell, and I didn't look him up ever in my life.
He was born in 73. He just looks super young.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Kinda.
But I mean, I think we're starting to get a profile like these men born in the early 70s who are shaping what it looks like to articulate your identity as a teenage girl in America, Yeah,
I think they call that grooming.
Whoops.
Oh, wait, I think I learned yesterday you're not supposed to say that on YouTube, at least. People are like censoring it. They're like censoring themselves so it doesn't come out. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. It might be that people are trying to not have content out about this kind of thing.
Well, listen, I wasn't going to introduce that particular phrase, but there is something creepy going on for me around the director of the video, who's the third entity. So there's Max, there's the Neptunes, and then there's Francis Lawrence, who's the video director. And so what Max is to pop music, Francis is kind of to music videos. Now, Francis, he's been directing videos for, let me see, oddly, Deborah Cox stands out. But Akon, Wyclef, Refugees. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Wyclef and the Fugees. Who else? But a lot of urban music, not exclusively, but a lot of urban music. And then he goes on to direct the Hunger Games, in big major.
He did Constantine. That's one of my favorite white people movies ever.
I F with Constantine. I do.
I watch that shit on repeat when I'm sick. Okay, I know this guy.
I don't love Keanu Reeves, but his movies tend to be some of my favorite movies.
There's no logic behind it. Let's move on.
Okay. So Francis Lawrence is the director of Slave for You, and if you ask Britney what that video's about, she's like, "Oh, I'm in a sexy dance party, and with my friends." But in the same article that I read, that Francis Lawrence is like, "Yeah, I had this theme about a bunch of basically kids from all over the world being in an Asian bathhouse."
Oh! I am already upset.
I'm grateful that you're upset, because I was like, how do you say, here's a 18-year-old girl, how am I going to direct this video? But I know where to put her. In an Asian bathhouse. I thought
What kind of, I mean, that's just so like, there's nothing to that. That's just him. He has nothing to him, and that's his fucking life. And he's like, let me do something with that. I made art. Like, I don't.
Well, there's something to that because he does seem to be the kind of, I'll use the term visionary. Like, he'll have a vision for what.
Criminal use of the word. Go on.
A vision for what for like a project that he wants to do. And because he was working with, I mean, he was producing several music videos each year in the early 2000s, late 90s. And so if he pitches a concept of an Asian bathhouse to, one artist and they don't go for it, he goes to the next. And so ultimately, he will have that vision executed, and which artist it is relatively inconsequential to him.
Oh my God. I'm looking at the list though, and I'm just going to pull some Rihanna, Green Day, Black Eyed Peas, Melanie C, Avril Lavigne, Aerosmith, Jennifer Lopez, Janet Jackson, Fastball, just for some scope. Monica, Gwen Stefani, Pink, whatever, like everybody that was on the top 40 on Rotate for. Yeah. Ooh, okay.
But I'm glad you say Pink, because Pink is another example of the creepiness that I am seeing here. So Pink put out 2 videos before working with Francis Lawrence, and both of them were colorful, playful. And then the video that she does with him, Pink goes black. Like it gets dark. She goes goth. And it seems almost
to be clear, this is the whitest man. The whitest man. I'm looking at his picture right now. Francis Lawrence is the whitest name possible if you're a white man. And he's the whitest white man with the whitest white man name, given that he's the white man with the name. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Pink. Okay. All right. So which video was that?
I want to say Just Like a Pill.
Huh.
And I know because it starts like the opening scene is like her laid supine on the floor, in all black, and the black of her outfit billows from her like a dark pool of blood. And her hair is short and edgy with purple highlights. And she's, the video starts with her kind of writhing out of this supine position on the floor. And it's like Pink, like we haven't seen her before. Like we know, let's get the party started, like it's a different Pink. But again, in this instance, like with Britney, when it's time for someone who's introduced to pop to make a turn to show that they're darker or more mature or, deeper, this is one of the folks that the pop patriarchy was turning to craft those images. Oh, but what's the most important video that I think for me in this discussion that he directs is the Cry Me a River video that Justin does after he and Britney break up.
Okay, now.
So let me set the scene. If, like we were talking about this pop explosion or what was going on in our teen pop, boy bands were everything. I'm sure you remember what it was like during this time, like boy bands were everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I rolled off an apple cart right into boy bands. And that was like my entire life at probably like 13, 14 years old. That's, boy bands.
Yeah. So Justin, both of them, Justin, Christina, Britney, all alums of that Mouseketeer experience, leaving the Mickey Mouse Club, trying to sort out what their new identities are going to be in the public eye. And so Justin has a little more time to figure that out because he's in a group after the Mickey Mouse Club ends. But Christina and Britney kind of, when they graduate, they go kind of straight to pop. Like they start recording almost immediately. And so they have to eke out these identities as individuals in a way that Justin does not, and he is protected by the patriarchy because there's, a number of brothers to shoulder the weight of white male masculinity.
Okay. Oh, this is a trip. Did any of the boys get forced into solo careers from the Mickey Mouse Club?
I mean, I feel like it was everyone for themselves, and
Mm,
and it really depended upon what your support network looked like and the resources that you had. I got
uh-huh.
the sense that whereas Christina, for example, was from the New York, maybe or like East Coast. She was able to kind of travel around, and her family had the resources to, or at least the geographical privilege of getting her into spaces where
Mm-hmm.
she could launch her career. Whereas Brittany, from a smaller, town in the South,
Mm-hmm.
it was a more difficult transition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what kind of structures do you already have in place to bounce back after your meal ticket is over?
Mm.
But so Justin has time to basically incubate within his boy band and make a lot of money while figuring out what he wants to do next. And when it was time for him to part ways with that group, was around the time that he had his relationship with Britney, and then his solo album came on the heel of their breakup. So what we get is Justin's first opportunity to articulate his own singular masculinity and artistry, and we get Cry Me a River, which in the same way that Britney turned to hip hop producers, the Neptunes, to make her sound a little more racy, Justin turns to Timberlake, who's enjoyed similar, if not greater, success in urban music, churning out hits with Missy Elliott and the Super Friends and everyone who can afford it. And so what we get is Cry Me a River, and Francis Lawrence directs that video as well. And here's why it's a problem. It's one of the most haunting revenge fantasies I'd ever seen explored cinematically at that point, maybe today.
Hmm.
In it, the basic plot, if you guys haven't seen it, is that Justin becomes aware that his partner is being unfaithful. So he takes to hiding in her bushes to, find out the truth of what's going on. He watches what in the video is clearly a Britney Spears lookalike leave her house with her paramour, and he breaks into the house and glides and flies and flips smoothly through breaking and entering so that he can set into motion this revenge plot, which involves him bringing in another girl to make out in this duplicate Britney Spears' home, recording the video, recording it all on video so that she can discover the video playing on one of her screens when she gets home and he sneaks out. In the video, he stalks her. He follows her so closely that we can't believe that she can't feel him on her skin. It's one of the creepiest things you'll ever see in a music video. And it is what made me look at Francis Lawrence with a side eye and say, this is what you were giving to American teens? This is what we thought was hot in the streets for folks who were too young to articulate their own burgeoning sexual identity, and you had to provide these tools to them?
Well, I'll tell you, I ate that shit up like bagel bites and washed it down with some Sunny D because I don't even remember the plot. I vividly remember watching the fuck out of the video a lot, though. Like, I remember sitting and absorbing it. I remember the shades of it. It's like blue, kind of grayish, right? Mm-hmm. Like a silver. Yep. Yeah, I remember eating it, but I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, the way that it goes kind of unchecked and unmarked as like violent predation is probably why it became so problematic for these teen idols to be articulating how empowered and autonomous they are, even while these adults are infusing really problematic elements into their artistry. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it really was like all over the place. What's our age difference? I was born in 85.
I'm 81.
Okay. Yeah, just enough. Yeah. Yeah, pairing this with my little gallivant down the rabbit hole of Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon last night, and just having like the use of like Nickelodeon's continuous and prevalent use of feet as iconography be reframed for me. I have a lot to stew on, like just a lot to stew on. Heck.
You know, one of the reasons I didn't want to fall down this rabbit hole is because this is the trick of white supremacy. It is to distract, as Toni Morrison said.
It's true.
That is there are so many things that brilliant creators of color could be doing, but we are constantly having to tend to this question of racism and distracted.
Oh my God.
And so I didn't want to center on Britney because that was getting decreasingly less and less satisfying. But what I do think is a beacon in the way that Nikki Aaliyah was in the last conversation. I think Janet Jackson is the salve in this conversation. If Britney Spears is a slave for you, Janet Jackson is a salve for you.
Oh.
That might be a little dad joke, but
you know what? Rub it in because I'm burning. I don't know. Fuck.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like the way that Britney starts this song is this spoken piece that reminds me a lot of Janet Jackson's Control. So Britney says, what Britney whispers, I know I may be young, but I've got feelings too. And I need to do what I feel like doing. So let me go and just listen. Which is a whole stanza of nothing but listen here. Like she hasn't said anything but listen here. But structurally, starting the song like that put me in the mind of Janet's Control because it's not included in the lyrics in the way that the Britney song is, but she says, this is a song about control of what I say, control of what I do. I don't know it verbatim. I know it spiritually. She said, because it's about control and I've got lots of it. And there's like this wonderful atmospheric music behind her and it feels like the dawning of a new day. The Janet of the two previous albums, which no one even mentions in public anymore, the self-titled Janet Jackson and Dream Street, like in this moment, she is clearing those from the record altogether. Those are not my creative product because I was not in control of them. My history starts now because I'm articulating it now. And so there's this really powerful way in that Janet starts that song and thereby her career, not as one of the Jacksons, but as self-possessed Janet, period. And I think that it was something that should prove instructive for future generations of pop starlets. That kind of the foregrounding the importance of autonomy and making sure that that's not just on the level of lyrics that in the entire product that you present to the public, that there's some integrity around you saying that you articulating what your role in it is.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so when she goes on to say, like, if Janet's control is like a carefully deliberated 5-paragraph essay about like how important it is for women to celebrate having agency over their lives, Britney Spears's Slave for You is like a parody, a comedy of errors that that are like a Mad Libs that takes all of those ingredients and throws them into a similar product without any of the authenticity or maturity that would give it some actual legs.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So I don't think it's coincidental that when it's time for Justin, the darling of the pop patriarchy, to issue apologies for the women that he's wronged, that both of these women are in the receiving line for those apologies, both Janet and Britney. Because the violent predation that we see him exhibit in that Crimea River video is in the impunity that he enjoys when he slithers away from her house is the same impunity that he enjoyed after Nipplegate at the Super Bowl.
Holy Hannah. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Except Janet, prayerfully, presumably, I don't know if I'm right about this, but needs that apology less, right? Because she was, although she was battered and undermined in terrible ways by that ordeal, she was already a fully articulated woman. Like, she was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Britney Spears was given Janet's styling, her choreography, her video concepts, her director, some of her producers, but not given any of the 10 years that Janet had to cultivate that in a way that made it real for her, not just as a person, but as an artist.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's how we end up like looking at conservatorship so closely, because we have this figure that's truly never been given control over how she presents herself, or not complete autonomy. And maybe the record industry is not a place for that to happen. That's a different conversation. But it seems like with the preponderance of songs that focus on how exhausted she is and resistant she is to surveillance and judgment and respectability, she's been singing to herself all along. Like in the way that Janet told the world, "This is who I am," Britney has been trying to tell herself first, and perhaps her handlers next, that this is who I want to be. I just fear that the pop patriarchy took away the tools to actually manifest that for her.
Mm. I mean, I got a bit of a more like insidious twist on it, where I feel like she's being presented with content to complement the imprisonment. And, I mean, like, I don't think it matters like how opulent the environment is that you're imprisoned to, like not being able to parent her own children or like drive vehicles legally. Like, that kind of shit's really bizarre. And So like, just little things that I'd be like, oh, something to do with the case is coming up. And then the next thing I know, Jamie Lynn's on a bunch of tabloids like, I'm pregnant, or like I'm, something weird and dumb that's like not a headline would come up. And that was during the beginning part of when I first became aware of the conservatorship. And eventually I kind of got burned out on looking at the whole thing until, a couple of years ago, I looked at it again, and it's been stressing me out the last, maybe since like 2016. I like looked back at it and I was like, that's still fucking happening. Why? Like, what is this? What is this? And how do I even have concern over something of this level? Like, why is it bothering me so much was kind of the initial thing that I had to answer to. And frankly, because I ate her, I consumed her. Like it's my responsibility to like deal with the things that I consume, I think, to some degree, what I regurgitate and digest, how I metabolize all of it. And I tend to linger a bit, like anywhere I am, if there's a little bit extra to clean up or something more that needs to be done, is somebody going to need a ride? Like, I'm not going to be like first to leave unless I have to from any type of situation. And, these conservatorship situations, I'm concerned now at the rapid release of how that one went, because it didn't look like it was going to happen, and I'm just worried somebody's like ready to exploit another level of it. They've changed the rhetoric or something, but being surrounded by handlers at that degree of wealth from the age that she was in it. And there's just like a few child stars that were approximately my age that I was watching their trajectory and keeping an eye on their parents. And I was just like, there's something off about that. I also had an affinity to like generations prior of yesteryear. Yeah, it's a weird thing to have people like grow up in a snow globe and then never get out of it. Just some of them never get out of it. All of them are kind of in it if they start off in it.
Yeah. And I'm like that snow globe, like glass menagerie experience that they're having. I'm suspicious of it because of the way that their platform authorizes them to shout down instructions on how to be yourself, to the rest of us, when the reality of the situation is that you'll be 40 before you breathe a free breath.
They don't know that.
Yeah. Well, Brittany, let's ask that question.
Yeah.
She thought she was free? Slave for you?
I mean, how old was she when she did it? What, 17?
19. She might have recorded at 18 and it was released at 19, but around there.
Yeah, I don't know. Then that was like when it was super trendy for white girls to have cornrows and like wigger culture was fucking thriving.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know what they were thinking. Honestly, I have no idea what was driving that performance of whiteness during that little era. I never really thought about it like that, but damn.
One of the things I would point out in the timeline of how this works out for Britney is that in the I want to say it's the 42nd Grammys. It's the whatever Grammys were the year 2000. If you don't memorize Grammy airings, and I don't, this was the one where J-Lo wore that iconic green dress that changed history and created Google image search, by the way.
Okay, that's a reference point. We don't need to know what year it was. We know what you're talking about now.
Yeah. So at that Grammys, that's where we witnessed some of the quote unquote Latin explosion. So
like Shakira and Santana and all that.
And the best new artist, Britney was up for best new artist against Christina and lost to Christina. And so I feel like Britney Spears is experiencing her racial otherness in the music industry, or at least the decentering of whiteness, or the fetishization of folks on the color, however you choose to language that.
God, you can never tell, or is it always the same thing?
Right.
Fuck. Sorry.
Yeah, like I feel like if whiteness isn't decentered sustainably, then it's the other stuff. You know?
Yeah. Yes.
If it's just one explosion and that fizzles out, then it's not real. You know?
Yeah. Well, usually, I mean, it's because they go too hard. They're either overcompensating or they're doing a caricature thing.
Right.
Is there any other thing that they do? Is that the comprehensive fucking list?
Neoliberal values of like market and values, right? So
Yeah, sorry.
there's nothing we can actually sink our teeth into there.
Yeah, no, at the bottom of the rabbit hole of white bullshit is just a ton of white noise, and then the ground falls out and it's just more goddamn white noise.
Sorry, that's all there is there.
I literally just did an excavation. I went down a hole. It was like a cave system of white bullshit. And it's just this, I rappelled out fine, more or less, but Jesus Christ, it's just white noise. Yeah. No, I tested. Yeah. I was testing my theory. Is there a reason to have hope in white people? The determination is it's partially delusional. That's all. Not partially not, but it's partially delusional. That's the part I want to focus on. It's partially delusional.
Yeah, insanity.
You know. Anyway.
But the point I'm making is that the way that she's playing with whiteness is not only shaped by what blackness is doing in the music industry, but this Latin explosion that she feels acutely, having lost the Best New Artist Grammy to Christina Aguilera.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get into these lyrics too, because I made this claim earlier, or I identified earlier how she in interviews is saying, oh, this is the concept for the video. And then the director is like, no, this is the concept for the video. I think the same thing happens on the level of the lyrics as well. The arguments I get into around this song, it always comes up that the folks interpret the song as, oh, I'm a slave to the music.
What folks? What? Who? You're turning me into an owl. Who says that?
My friend Tommy Coleman.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
But no, Britney says it as well. Fans, regurgitate it, obviously. But
well, if she said it, then fans would regurgitate it,
right? Because you're a fan, but there's no real discussion of that in the lyrics. The lyrics are actually illustrating a scene that is very familiar and very uncomfortable for me as a Black man, and travel down this rabbit hole with me, if you will.
Mm.
And I'll own right here that, like, as a Black queer scholar, intersectional feminist who is preoccupied with questions of race, if you feel like those vectors of identity and practice overdetermine my analysis, that's fine. But here's what it looks like where I stand. There is this trope about white women becoming enamored of Black culture so thoroughly that they eschew, forfeit, and relinquish their allegiances to whiteness broadly, but white patriarchy in particular.
Uh-oh.
And so I was asking my friend Omar, I was like, where is this, most clearly articulated in culture? Is it a movie? I don't know where I've seen this, but I feel like I've seen it play out over and over again. There's a plot, for example, in Godfather of Harlem, which is a sitcom on, I want to say, like, FX that stars Forrest Whitaker as a very important gangster who changed history, and his name escapes me right now. It's some other name for a phallus, like Woody. But anyway.
He remembered later that night, it's Bumpy Johnson.
It tells the story of, like, a blues musician who becomes embroiled in this interracial attraction. So he's, trying to get out of the hood with his music thing and meets a white girl who happens to be connected to the mob. And the hijinks ensue. What ends up happening is that like she's so in love with him as an individual, but what his music means for the race, his race, and for race relations and for the world, that she kind of relinquishes that loyalty to her Italian circle in ways that create problems and predictable violence for all the Black folks around her. And I think he ends up dead as a result. Mm. And when I saw it felt very familiar because the notion of this white girl coming to the jazz club because she thinks because the music there is so seductive, and her being enraptured in a way that causes her to lose sense of her social positioning or to relinquish the privileges of her social position, and just dance the night away in the carefree way that the Negroes enable for her. And the problem only comes when we realize that the rest of the white world has not forgotten where this white girl is, and Black folks always start dying around the club as soon as we discover the white girl that's gone native. And so when Britney says at the start of the song, all you people look at me like I'm a little girl. Did you ever think it'd be okay for me to step into this world? Always saying, little girl, don't step into the club. I'm just trying to find out why, because dancing's what I love. It resonates different because the penalties for you, little girl, being in that club are great for us of age men and women upon whom the penalties will be exacted, right? And so, but I think there's a double entendre going on here where, or maybe triple, the club that she's talking about, I do think that club literally is the same club that 50 Cent is talking about in the club. Like it's not a particular dance club. It is a cultural space where being present doesn't mean you belong or you're included. Like that's something that has to be negotiated. And so that's why certain people are told not to step into it, right? It's not for everybody. It's not safe for everyone. And this question about, I'm just trying to find out why you guys don't want me to be here because dancing's what I love. Well, white girl, it's because this safe space that we've cultivated can only remain safe if everyone here agrees to its rules. And one of the things that she is doing by being there is willfully bucking convention and those rules that we all talked about. And so when she talks about, don't you want to dance up on me, leave behind my name and age, it resonates different because whether we do or whether we don't, it's dangerous for you to be asking the question. And we don't enjoy the luxury of leaving behind. Can R. Kelly leave behind your name and age? Who here, who in this club that you're not allowed to, can do what you're saying here and leave behind your name and age? Who enjoys that privilege or luxury within the club? So it's this fantasy. It's this kind of jungle fantasy that women have been having for a few hundred years now.
Oh, heck.
Where they get carried away by the drums and they don't understand why society won't let them.
Oh my God. Yeah. Fuck. Yep.
But the way that white women use this metaphor has proven problematic. Like, you're not a slave for us, sweetheart. Like, you're not a slave for us. Like, you are a slave to a system that you are trying to evade, and you will co-opt our safe spaces until they're no longer safe for us to do that.
Yo, that's the moral. That's the point. Yep.
Yeah. And so you'll hijack these technologies like our beats, our producers, our geniuses,
our rhetoric,
our
identities, our plights, our like our endeavors, like, the terms we come up with to describe things we've gone through in shorthand. They're like, oh, that seems like me. Me too, probably a little.
Yeah.
If it's a little bit, then I get to all the way, don't I? Come on, like.
Yeah. But even the privilege of referencing slavery as this empty metaphor, as if white women didn't profit from and propel slave labor, it is a problem. Activating BDSM culture without any real understanding of sub-dom relationships might be why you can't get out from under the patriarchy. Like, I hate to speak, broadly and conspiratorially in that way, but I do think that if she'd taken some of the actual lessons of Janet Jackson's Control and the other people of color that she's either borrowing from or activating for this track and for this album, that she could have sooner arrived at a space where these articulations of autonomy and self-determination would ring less hollow.
On the notion of conspiracy, I don't think that all conspirators are hip to the conspiracy that they play in.
Yeah.
Like they know the steps, but they're not hip to it in like they can come in and they can learn how to do the line dance, but they're not setting up the show. They're not all running it,
Yeah.
They're not all like planning the playlist. Some of them are just following it. Like, oh, we're doing this song now. Oh, we're doing that step now. Okay. Like, I don't know. It's so complex. Like, it's the inertia that's complex. Like, it's like swarming.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what's activated here. Like, it's certainly my skepticism and distrust, but it's also my pity.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck. Can I find any mercy? Is there anything to do with this shit? Because they're not. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Fuck.
I think that it is very real. Like, I feel in a visceral way how bothered I am by invoking slavery in this way. The notion that slavery is something that is sexy without any real understanding of the sub-dom relationship. It feels like this Lolita activation of a lipstick feminism that is like baseless and inauthentic.
I do wish that we had done this episode on camera, because my face, like a lot of my face for many
Maybe
moments.
we should go back and record our faces to coincide.
We'll do a reaction video of us listening to it after I edit it. That sounds good.
Are just GIFs. It doesn't even have to be like our faces.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. GIFs will do.
I emote through GIFs 98% of the time these days.
Memes are a love language and a communication tool. Amen.
Yeah.
Oh. Have you got any other thoughts?
One, I just want to point out that I think that we should all be taking a closer look at Francis Lawrence.
Right.
I think that he's been so prolific as a director that we'd be well served to interrogate his attitudes toward women and children.
Yeah.
Because I don't I don't think that they're negligible. I think that they're shaping culture in some important ways, and I haven't heard anyone talk about them. So that's one.
Now I'm all upset about the Hunger Games, which I already was like itchy about, because why was Katniss a white girl? But let's not even with that.
Yeah. But I mean, it might be because he has perverse design like women.
Right.
Like,
I mean, you actually, the whole episode, we just did an episode about why Katniss was a white girl. Like, oh, fuck. Shit.
I mean, he might have needed, within him, he might have needed to do to her the same thing he did to Pink and Britney.
Yeah.
And whatever, teen starlet he could get his hands on.
What an elaborate co-opting on this particular occasion, though. Heavens, those books are pretty chill. Like, they're not. They could be chiller. We don't need to. There's like a whole bunch of things to get into with the books, but the books to the films clearly like went out of its way to strip out stuff that was a problem to strip out. Namely, that Katniss is not white, and the capital, their accent is not supposed to be this kind of like fluffy, kind of Britishy, whatever. It's distinctly described to be like a Kardashian, like Hollywood, like everybody's got the vocal fray. Every single body is ending their sentences with a question inflection. They're all talking like this. It's not regal. It's the mall. But yeah, anyway.
Well, yeah, that's my takeaway. I'm arguing that Janet provided all of us, but certainly Britney, with kind of a prototype. And all of the reviews of that album cite how she's borrowing from Janet and from Prince. And so I do think it's a cautionary tale about reading and rereading and living with the artists that you quote and paraphrase and mimic and co-opt, because those beats, those melodies, those rhythms, they're tied to something kind of spiritually. And it seems that the spiritual vacuum infused into the product that Britney has handed, it plays a sizable role in the Britney that we end up meeting in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as a song, Slave for You was just formulaic and soulless, and just a free association about relinquishing self-control despite all sensible logic and counsel, which is very much the opposite. I mean, there's some, eschewing the wisdom of parents in Janet's control, but it's for more sound counsel within oneself, which is something that we don't find. We find Britney hoping that the music will do that for her, that it will be the voice that directs her, that it will be the master to her slave. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, we see that when you create a space to be dominated by a master, that master will appear.
It's escapism with the assumption that you're never going to be able to escape.
It's escapism as a gift. Right? Like, it's not even something that you manufacture yourself. It's like, here's a mode of escapism that's no danger to the structure I'm creating for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, have you seen Seberg or
no.
done any? I would like to watch that with you and do an episode about it.
Seberg.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it a while back, and it was really, I don't remember. I have a hard time retaining anything that I watch. I go through it once, and then after a few weeks watching it again is the first time. But yeah, I feel like somewhere in it there's going to be a space to move from this dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need space to move from this style.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I need like a lollipop. I need like a sticker, or like, like after the dentist office kind of vibes. Like, I'm like, do I have any ice cream in the freezer? Sure.
It's funny. There's a B-side to Slave for You. It's her song Overprotected. But there's a refrain in it, which is I need space. I need me. It's like a short litany of things that she needs. But I think the first in it is space. I need time, love, joy. I need space. I need me. All of the things that she's been denied, mind you. I think it's really interesting to now, knowing what we know, return to this album and see how much of it was like this wish fulfillment exercise created to keep her trapped.
The upside down.
That.
Word. Well, I'm trying to think of more to say. I'm out of shit to say for this one. It's just so complex the way that like intersectionality is like all the little articulative pivot points. Articulated pivot. I'm just gonna make up words because there's not enough. Like that's a whole other episode. Like I gotta think about the words that we use improperly and then the words that we don't have. But yeah, there's just all these little spots that things are noticed from, and if we weren't constantly distracted by things like racism, we could be doing something with the information that we're accruing. I think that's what, just being less distracted by racism that's the thing I'm already working on. So, yeah, because it really will be in neoliberalism. Racism and neoliberalism is just such an aggressive mold. Yeah, how it shows up in the arts and in relationships. Anyway, that's what's up. Thank you.
I'm glad that we are on this journey together.
Me too. Same. Yeah.
And I'm totally open to being called on my shit. I try to own how much of this is driven by my own quirkiness, but as a literary scholar, I'm bound to examine what's in the lyrics and then contextualize it within the culture. And so that's how I arrive where I arrive. If you arrive somewhere else, let me know. But I think we should really be looking at Francis Lawrence.
I think I'm pretty interested in him, and I'm wondering, because I do remember there were things about like Constantine. I just remember watching it a lot. There were things that I was like, that's a little weird, but like nothing that stands out, and I just feel like I need to comb through. But then it's like, how much time do I want to spend distracted by racism? That's the thing.
And this was my struggle with preparing to have this conversation, because I'm like, I can't center 19-year-old Britney Spears for this long in 2021. Like it's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for the movement. But
maybe it is though. Maybe there's something to go back into breed that was not worked out.
Well, was the salve that Janet emerged to be, that she was providing something for these pop princesses that if they stop chasing clout, they might tune into.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I feel like if Britney and Christina were one generation to have to suffer through this publicly, it gave way to a generation of Kardashians that would replicate some of these problems in the public sphere. So, it's worth it because we continue to watch history repeat itself. Well, I just find a way to on the Black genius within and turn to the salve of Janet rather than to get mired in the mess of Britney.
Word. Yeah, I don't know that history is repeating itself. I feel like I'm seeing a spiral and like we're not hitting the same spots. We're moving somewhere. Because especially if you start bringing the Kardashians into it, Britney never, like, she tanned, but like, I mean, they haven't used the term transracial yet, but Rachel Dolezal is right there.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, and I see where you're going. I guess for me, there's a similar way that the Britney Spears camp and the Kardashian Jenner camp regards and activates Black genius, and the folks that work with Pharrell prior to Britney were. I'm trying not to make an essentialist claim. There's a way that Justin and Britney turned to Timberland and Pharrell to achieve a certain passing.
Mm-hmm.
And that in regarding Black genius as that kind of springboard for white mediocrity is the Kardashian brand. Using Black excellence as fodder for your, hyper-capitalist ascent. I guess I see Spears and Kardashian Jenner as colonial powers. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. They colonize Blackness in their own interest, and the relationship is more often parasitic than not.
Yeah, I mean, I got a little bit of a special place for Britney, but it really is just because of the treatment. Because her thing does go back further. Like the pageantry when she was a kid is like a whole other level. It goes further back. Like the grooming of her to be like, livestock essentially for life.
The only difference is, or not the only difference, but the primary difference is the technology of their times. I think that Britney was exploited as much as a child star could be exploited within the technologies, like trying to land a record deal after Mickey Mouse Club before the internet, and access to the web is in every home. Like that's a different animal than what the Kardashian Jenners have access to.
Well, and I think it's because the Kardashian Jenners are being paired up against Britney, where I'm like, that's a dynasty and a dynasty, and we got a whole other. That's just a different beast. And
it's a colonial power and a colonial power.
Yeah, and the Jenner's white, but the Kardashians are not white, are they? They're not Black, and they're appropriating Black identity, but
they're trafficking in whiteness.
Sure, of course, yes. Britney is from Louisiana, though, unquestionably white, and not tilting in any direction to get there. I'm not arguing. I'm noticing nuances. I'm putting pins in nuances because I feel like this is going to just be spinning in my mind for some time, and I'll have more follow-up thoughts that emerge. Yeah.
I do think that the age at which Britney reaches sexual maturation versus Kim Kardashian, for example, like the way that they augment their bodies to fit the standards of beauty of the day are different, and those differences are made by just technology. But also, the standard of beauty was wider in 2000 when Britney was preparing "Slave for You," and I do think that this post-racial Kablasian mix,
holy heck, yes,
that the prizing that shade of mixiness, which is a Kipling term.
Wait, Rudyard Kipling?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Oh, what a mess. Yeah.
But I do think that the standard of beauty is bending toward the Kardashians in a way that the normalcy of white womanhood bent toward Britney in her day.
I would tend to agree. Yes. Yes. Well, I guess that's that for now.
That's that for now.
It has been a joy as always. You are such a wonderful guest. I love doing episodes with you.
I'm enjoying the journey. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
We'd like to thank our patrons on Patreon and everyone who's bought our merchandise. Find the links to all that stuff and our social links on goodmorningmayberry.com. We've got closed captioned episodes on YouTube. Subscribe, listen, and rate us on all the podcast spots. If you're wondering who we are, we is me and my demons. And you can join the Legion by following our Tumblr, Twitter, or Instagram, jumping on the Patreon, or just buying one of our shirts and wearing that around, drinking the tears of whoever you like the least out of one of our mugs. And coming back and checking out the next episode. I'm Shift. And always remember to never forget.
I'm glad that we are on this journey together.
Me too. Same, yeah.
And I'm totally open to being called on my shit, 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 on my shit.
I hope you're all feeling good about that landing. That's not the end of this trip. There is a lot more to unpack about the 90s pop culture scene. And in fact, I've been having quite a week educating my peers, fellow millennials, and also some zillennials about Nickelodeon. And you know how they had that foot logo? They had a lot of foot fetish pedophiles running around there making shows like All That and The Amanda Show and, iCarly having Ariana Grande pour water over herself and say obscene things veiled in jokes. It's a mess. So, we'll be having more episodes to talk about the pop culture patriarchy and how awful it is. And some ideas that we have, because youth are always going to need to watch stuff, but they don't always have to watch stuff made by creeps.